hello.
everybody.
Hello, everybody. Good to have you all with us tonight, and welcome back to Explaining the Unexplainable. I am one of the co hosts, Bishop Josh, and along with me, my wonderful co host, Mercedes. And we have a very interesting guest with us tonight. So I want to welcome you back to our program where we explore the mysteries that lie just beyond the veil of the natural world. Um, Tonight, we're honored to welcome a man whose life has been dedicated to uncovering the unseen. Our guest, Tony Rathman, and I hope I said your name right. I've got a country accent, Tony, so
You
just
did.
I apologize for that.
No, you did fine.
I tell the ladies where I teach, I'm a therapist and I teach clinical groups, and I tell them I speak Appalachian Spanglish. So, and I murder the English language. But our guest, Tony Rathman, is a seasoned paranormal investigator with years of experience in exploring haunted locations, researching unexplained phenomena, and developing groundbreaking methods of spirit communication. His work has been featured in documentaries, podcasts, and conferences across the country. And his dedication to seeking truth in the supernatural has made him a respected voice in the field. Tony and his wife have founded, and let me make sure that I get this right. Is it Entity Voices?
Paranormal investigation.
Paranormal investigations, yes. Where they've conducted hundreds of investigations, pushing the boundaries of what we know about life after death and the unseen realm. And tonight, yes, ladies and gentlemen, tonight we've got him here. And we tonight will dive deep into this unseen world, into this journey, his experiences, and what he's learned about the mysteries that most people fear to face. So, Tony, welcome to our show tonight.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. Always excited to talk about the research that we're doing and the evidence that we're getting from the projects that we're working on. So appreciate that.
Awesome.
Well, we have already got people on the chat, so I'm excited. So I'll be doing some of that too. While just keep everybody, so they know that we're listening to them too. So take it away, Bishop Joshua. I know you are just waiting to ask some questions here.
Yeah, I've got a few that I've actually written out, and hopefully we can get some of our audience members to ask some questions too. It's good to see Amber on with us tonight. I got to meet Amber a few weeks ago in Mason County, Kentucky. What a precious, precious lady. And it's always good to have Mac with us. And of course, Stan the man, the guy the brains behind this operation. Stan really does a wonderful job, and we love and appreciate him and his wonderful wife. Now, what I want to talk about a little bit first, Tony, is your background and your calling. Let's begin with your story. What first drew you into the world of the paranormal, and when did you realize this was more than just curiosity? Was it a calling?
No, the calling came from my wife. My father was a physics instructor. So
wow.
Every time I had a question, Dad, why is the sky blue? He'd say, well, the different layers of ozone, when they have moisture in them and sunlight hits them, the sunlight reflects in the water. Blue is the most reflective color. That's why the sky looks blue. Nothing about spirits, ghosts. That wasn't scientifically associated anything. So it didn't really come up. But when I met my wife, when the shows started coming out, she kept saying to me, "Oh, you're gonna love this. Come and watch this with me." I'd last about 2 minutes, and I'd get up and I'd say, "No, this is ridiculous. This doesn't exist. This is for television only," and I'd walk away. Well, then she tricked me back in 2010 on Valentine's Day weekend, which was coming up, and she said, "I want to do something different this year." I said, "Okay, what do you want to do?" And she said, "I want to go ghost hunting." And I was just like, "Oh, kidding me." But I had two choices. I could take her or have her mad at me until next Valentine's Day. I didn't want that. So I did some research online, found a hotel here in Phoenix that had a haunted reputation, bought her some inexpensive equipment and took her. She had a great time. I played along. I asked questions with the recorder. I took pictures with her. We videotaped. She had fun. That was all I cared about. But when she got home and started reviewing it, some of the stuff I was just mind blown. And what caught my attention the most was on the digital recorder. It was 3 a.m. We were the only 2 people in the basement of the hotel. I don't even think we were supposed to be down there, but we were. There was no one around. There was nobody up. There was nobody down there. And we got answers with timing and relevance to the questions that we asked. And that blew me away to the point where it started to bug me. I said, I've got to figure out how this happened. So finally I said, well, let's go back. Maybe there was a vent we weren't aware of that voices were coming through and they just happened to coincide with the question. Because again, I'm a complete skeptic on all this. Well, I looked, I checked everything out. There were no vents. And we came back. She reviewed again. We had even more responses to questions that were asked. That's how this all began. But
wow.
I was, yeah.
What a great story this is.
So I was fascinated with EVPs, getting a voice when there was no other human, embodied human anywhere around. But yet a voice came out of nowhere, showed up on the recorder, and like I said, with timing and relevance, answered the question that I asked. Well, most of the time anyway. And then, of course, we started doing research as we broke out exploring across all of Arizona. And then we moved to New Mexico and Nevada and then California. And it just kept spreading. We've now been almost all over the country. A few states yet where we haven't investigated, but we've investigated in the Philippines, in Japan, so internationally as well. And as our investigations grew, so did our research. We built spirit boxes for 12 years, but the biggest problem with the spirit boxes were twofold. We couldn't really increase the clarity of the speech, and we certainly couldn't increase the length. So then we joined up with some team members who had done research on different methods of spirit communication, figured out which ones actually seemed to work, which ones were being faked, which ones weren't true at all. And they developed a method called direct radio voice. And when they showed it to us, we said, hey, can we partner with you and elevate this thing? And they said, yes. We did that for about 3 years. We changed it from direct radio voice, which used a radio. And then we removed the radio because the 2 scientific complaints for any either EVP or ITC was that you were either hearing warbles and artifacts of sound and not words at all, or you were picking up a stray radio station because your device was a radio. So it's really hard to convince somebody in science that you're getting voices from the other side when your device of operation is a radio, and that is a perfectly legitimate complaint. So we took the radio out. We replaced it with a white noise generator, which is an electrical device that produces every sound from 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz, all at a spectral frequency of 1, meaning it's even, instead of white noise off of a vacant radio, and it worked. So then we went through, I don't even know how many changes. We made it clean up the audio, manage the frequencies, denoise it, and we slowed down live white noise in real time because we realized that we would hear something that sounded like a syllable. And when we slowed it down 50%, so half the speed, it was 2 or 3 sentences, not a syllable. And when we realized we could do that, we built that all into Staticom, and that worked relatively well. Well, we went from Staticom to Staticom 2.0. Then the partnership broke up. We have now taken it from 2.0 to 3.0. 3.0 is our latest, and now I'm partnering with an ITC researcher, brilliant guy named Samuel Andrate in Brazil, to take it from 3 and then to every next level we can.
Wow.
You know, I first got interested in the EVP phenomena. Of course, I'm an old Art Bell fan.
Art Bell
Spent
was
many nights
wonderful.
listening. He was one. I spent many nights listening to Art and Barbara Macbeth and Brandon Cook. Remember them?
Yep.
Ghost Investigator Society. I don't.
Yep.
They dropped off the face of the earth. I don't know what's happened to them. I can't find anything current about them. But I remember listening to Ghost AM and listening to Art bring Barbara on there and play those EVPs. And
Sure.
you know, I've been in ministry nearly 35 years. I've been an exorcist for over 20, and I've been in a lot of scary places. But those, when they would magnify those voices, it would cause chills to run up and down my back. I passed newspapers for many years, and then went into work in the office. But you know, we passed them at night. And I always listened to Art, you know, even when he was on the different radio stations after he left Coast to Coast. And every time he had Barb or someone on there, it always fascinated me because, and you know, so many skeptics, so many people are so skeptical of things they don't understand or things that they don't know. You know, I don't understand how brain surgery is performed, but I know it works. You
Right.
know, there's things that we don't understand, things that are mysteries to us, and it doesn't mean that they're not verifiable. You know, there's a lot of variables, like you said, that go into proving all these things to be true and real. And
Yeah.
you
And
know,
part
I mean, it's not hysteria. You didn't imagine it; you recorded it, right? So
correct.
I mean, you can't say you made it up.
No, and you know, in order to have the experience, you have to have the experience first. Only then can science come in and measure it and determine maybe what it is or not is. And you know, science is evolving, and it evolves every day as they learn new information. And just because science doesn't say something exists or not exists or can't prove that it does, doesn't mean that it doesn't yet. It just means that science hasn't gathered the right information to prove it yet.
Right.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
I think what you're doing is amazing, and I'm with Bishop Joshua, because when you hear those voices, and you too, Tony, when you actually hear them, and you're like, "What in the?" And for the first time, I will never forget the first time that here, like I've gone to a couple of ghost hunt things. Um, oh, that far away, but I can't remember Bisbee, and I didn't hear a thing. I mean, so I had never really heard anything except on the TV, on shows, but until we heard it here on our property. And I mean, I think I told Tony the other day, I was like, I will never forget what I've heard. I mean, it's just like you never quite forget it. It's just so amazing. So,
Right.
and I love the story how this, that you were absolutely not at all interested in this, and your lovely wife. It's just like it was like her, like angels and spirits were trying
Right.
to make sure that you did get in this work. You were
That
meant to be in this work.
that's what happened. She probably regrets it now. I mean, it's been over 15 years and I haven't put it down since we started, and nor do I plan to. But yeah, so EVPs have been known about and recorded since the 50s, early 50s.
Yeah.
And there's even reports of ones before done on single wire recorders captured. But Frederick Jurgensen is the most known for the one who discovered he was out recording bird song calls. And he got his father, who called him by his childhood nickname, and he recognized the voice. But, so electronic voice phenomena is not new. But when we started looking back at the progress that has been made or the information gained from it since the time it's been developed and understood that it's happening, we said, let's see how far we can push it. Let's see what can be captured, what we can get them to say. And if consciousness survives death and lives on, and ghosts would have to be of that same conscious matter, and a ghost can speak via EVP through electronics, can we get anyone to speak. What do they sound like? What will they say? And then the next step from there was, can we have two-way communication where I say something, they respond, I ask something else, or they ask something else, I respond? Is that possible? Well, what we're going to play tonight, which is Staticom and the progression to 3.0, you're going to see that not only is it possible, but that we've accomplished it.
Wow, we're going to be able to listen to that tonight. Wow. Okay.
Awesome.
Okay. And can you guys hear me okay? I want to make sure everybody can hear
Yeah,
me.
you sound great.
Okay.
And you know what? Here's the thing that I found interesting, and I'm so glad that you went and took your wife up on that offer to go out and do investigating on that Valentine's Day, because Tony, you might be one of the voices in the dark talking.
There's actually that runs deeper even than just that comment. But Marcello Bacci, when he was doing direct radio voice, he was tested in lab, and they literally pulled the vacuum tubes from his radio one by one to see at what point the voices would stop coming through. Well, they didn't. The only thing they could remove to make the voices stop coming through were Marcello Bacci himself. So there is definitely a connection between the operator and the device used.
We have a question.
Awesome.
We have a question from Amber. So she goes, for Tony, you said it happened at 3 a.m. Could it be that demons may be messing with him or trying to get in to open doors, as Bishop was talking about in the last episode?
Well, people ask us all the time, how do you know who or what you're speaking to? The answer to that is we don't. Now, we can go off of the years of research where we flat out ask them, are you spirit? Are you extraterrestrial? Are you multi-dimensional? And they will answer one of two answers: spirit or consciousness is how they identify themselves. So to have that information helps, but does that mean it's 100% true? No. Could someone be lying to us? Could they be giving us wrong information? Yeah, that's always a possibility. So you have to keep your guard and attention up at all times. But we've gone out and we've looked up internet questions randomly, wrote down 100 of them and the answers. And we've gone to Staticom, asked those questions, and gotten the correct answers from Staticom. So we have done test after test after test to show that there's a lot more going on here than just and people say it to us all the time. Are you crazy? You're talking to demons. Well, if I am, over the last 15 years, they've been pretty nice. Now, I'm sure they're not under time and space as the human construct has been created, and time doesn't matter to them. So could it still be a risk? It could. But have we had any concerns with communication to this point? No, we haven't.
Well, I guess I'll just say what I got to say on this one. Even if you are talking to a demon, the fact is that you're talking to them. I mean,
Correct.
That right there, that just shows you that there is something there. And I definitely believe that, especially from what I experienced here, that there can be real ones that are very much caring, loving, even family, but there are those tricky ones, those bad ones. And so I've understood both ways, and I know you have to be careful. Do you take some sort of protection? How do you keep yourself protected?
We did that in the beginning, but after over 15 years, I think we're coming up on 15 and a half, we haven't run into any concerns. So we did that for years to begin with, every investigation, but we're more into research now. One of the things that we realized that, when we started the research was we wanted nothing more than to prove that spirits could communicate. And the only objective was to capture the best evidence possible of them communicating. But now it's not so much about hearing a spirit or a ghost speak. We literally had to reevaluate our entire perspective of what we believe both life to be and the afterlife to be. And so it was no longer a focus on proving spirits exist or that they can speak, but that proving that consciousness survives death, lives on after death. And we're not just proving that, we're literally diving into the explanations for life itself and what happens after it and who we are as living humans.
Wow, that's
Very,
big.
very, very good. Good explanation. That's, I appreciate you uh, and your ability to communicate and articulate what it is that you do. Some people, you and I both have run into people that jump right into the paranormal and they don't do their work. They don't do the homework. It's just, I don't know. So many people want their 15 minutes of fame, and they
Right.
don't want to put in the work. They want to take somebody else's work and put their name on it, or just. But you have been. Here's one thing that I really like in researching you. You've been consistent. And to me, I think that's very important. The old saying goes, "Consistency, thou art a jewel." And
Right.
I think that when people are consistent and they provide their work and their research. See, I'm all about research, and what I do, I work in a drug addiction facility, and I don't believe in just taking a person's word for something. I believe in research, and I believe that research matters. And I want to say that I appreciate the fact that you do put in the work, you and your wife and your team, and it shows. And I just
Thank
want to say that I appreciate that.
Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
We have reached out to, I don't even know how many different organizations within science itself to look at this. And they're still hesitant, even afterlife organizations. But we did have the system completely reviewed by, not from the paranormal side, just from the electronics being used. And he went through every component, every aspect, every feature of it. And he came back and he said, you know what? You only have one problem. He said that problem is your white noise generator. It has the ability, because it's encased in plastic, it's not protected. It can pick up electromagnetic interference and could possibly even pick up some sort of stray electromagnetic interference. So he said, take that device, and I built a brand new one. He said, encase it in steel, in EMI resistant material. He said, then ground it into the ground with a metal pole attached to it, grounded from the circuit to the ground, 1.5 feet of the ground. And he said, let me know if you still get voices. Sure enough, we did it. Voices are still there. So this is literally, and he's one of the top electrical engineers and computer scientists in the country. So he went through it and said, from an electronics perspective only, said, here's where you could be getting interference. And
Wow.
it didn't stop the voices.
Wow. That's amazing. Oh my gosh. Okay, so we have a question from Matt, and I have to find it, but it looked like a really good question. So, with AI pattern recognition, if an AI flagged consistent, unexplained audio, visual patterns across unrelated surveillance feeds, what process would determine whether they were mechanical, environmental, or possibly paranormal? This is a tech question.
Well, we don't, outside of noise reduction, we don't use any AI. The only AI used in the system is noise reduction. We have no word generation whatsoever. But to answer his question, the first answer to that is timing and relevance. There is no way for me to ask a question, because I don't broadcast my voice. I speak in my normal tone of voice in whatever haunted location or my house, and I speak in my normal tone of voice. To have an answer with timing and relevance come back and answer the question I asked is the determining factor of whether that was paranormal. Because let's face it, even if it was a radio wave seeping in, which we now know we've obstructed, it can't. But that DJ would have some amazing psychic abilities to know what I asked and give an answer that somehow got into my system. Mm-hmm. So the explanation to where these voices are coming from is the next part of that question. The honest answer is we don't know. But what I can tell you is that white noise, 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz, contains no vocal data whatsoever. No words, no sentences, no sound. It is that shush sound that you used to hear at midnight when the TVs all shut down and the noise between radio stations. That's white noise. But it contains no vocal data. The way we believe this is occurring is through a physics principle called stochastic resonance. Stochastic resonance is used in everything from medical equipment to take signals and raise them. Well, we use the white noise through the process of stochastic resonance to take spirit vocals that are outside of our human hearing and raise them to the level that they can be heard with human hearing. And that is how we believe they're occurring. So the next question is, where do the voices originate from? If you're pumping in white noise, where are the voices coming from? Well, there was a term, and still being used today, called ghost in the machine. Well, we believe that term is the perfect representation, that they're using the electronics the same way they're using a digital recorder to leave a message and interpret that mechanical processing of sound. They're using that same method within the system, and we're using white noise to elevate it. So what happens is that the white noise at a spectral frequency of 1 sits at a single level. When they speak, their voice overlaps a handful of those frequencies in the white noise, which then elevates their voice, but not the white noise. Then we cut the white noise off, leaving only their voice.
That's fascinating. You know, I'm a big wrestling fan. And when Hulk Hogan died, I was devastated, and I was watching different videos on YouTube, and I found a couple of people that used the ghost boxes or spirit boxes to try to contact him, and some of them loaded his voice into their computer, and some of them was using radio frequency sweeping to try to give him the opportunity, I guess, to manipulate the chaos, because you hear them going through the channels, AM, FM, digital, whatever it is that they do. And there was no clear answers. I mean, it was just, they would ask something, you'd hear a word here or there. So what you're talking about is completely different than that.
Completely different. And that was the whole purpose of it. We knew what science did not take seriously about ITC or even EVP. We knew we had to clear the voice to a point where anyone could hear it and understand exactly what was said. And we knew we had to remove any low-hanging fruit of radio waves, satellite, walkie-talkies, baby monitor. It could not be susceptible to any of those.
Awesome.
Wow. So I asked him if he wouldn't mind coming here sometime, Bishop Joshua, Brother Joshua, because he's only an hour from my house.
Hour 45, yeah.
Okay. So you're past Phoenix?
No, I'm very north Phoenix, but it's about an hour and something. I don't remember, hour and a half, something like that.
Well, I really think it's be great. Well, one of the things I find interesting is, like, you have some of these spirits that do not actually, they don't actually realize that you're there, and you'll hear them, or you have them speaking directly to you, like you were talking about. Have you had where there's multiple spirits talking to you? Because that happened in the house, where they all knew each other and were talking to each other. and we were listening to them.
Yeah, we do that all the time. We can turn it on, just listen to them speak. We don't have to say a word.
Wow.
And we can hear their conversations.
What is some of the most fascinating or crazy things you've heard? Or anything that
I'm going to stay away from some of the craziest ones because they are unbelievably crazy. But I mean, you know, there doesn't seem, I think the real eye opener for most people is that their existence isn't all that dissimilar to ours here. They're talking about similar subject matter. They're talking about maybe a spirit that they don't get along with, or an argument they had, or something they're disagreeing on. You know, it's not sitting around on a cloud playing harps all day. I mean, they have, you know, and when I asked them, I can't remember how this conversation came up, but they told me that they have jobs, which I didn't like to hear because I was hoping maybe that you didn't have to do that. Now, I'm sure they're not the same kind of jobs we have here because the environment is different, and you know, the learning is different and everything's different. But the learning never stops. Growth here on Earth, we believe, is transferred back. Everything we learn here, we believe we're fractional portions of universal consciousness, and we return to it. And all that information goes along. And, you know, if universal consciousness is a single mind can expand itself. It would need individual fractional portions to go live an independent life and learn, to be able to bring that learning and growth back to universal consciousness. And that's what we believe happens.
What about the terrestrial ones you were talking about? What have they signaled to you or spoke to you about? Or they say their consciousness?
I called them ghosts one time years ago, and they laid into me very heavily saying, we prefer spirits. That was the term they prefer. Now, we've heard them use consciousness as well, but they're very adamant about making sure they're termed and labeled correctly. So yeah, it's either spirit or consciousness. And then people say, well, have you heard from extraterrestrials? Well, considering it's vocal only, I don't have any imagery or picture or representation of who I'm talking to, and I don't have spirit caller ID. I can only go by their vocals. So if an extraterrestrial had the ability to send that message, and they're speaking English, I would not be able to determine that it wasn't human. So,
wow, that is amazing. I think what I wonder, have you heard anybody that had a language that you could not understand?
Oh yeah, multiple occasions. I turned it on one time, was listening. I didn't understand the word they were saying. So finally I said, what language are you speaking? That doesn't sound like English. And they said Turkish. Well, I had recorded it, so I took it to somebody I knew who spoke Turkish, and they wrote out exactly what was said, and it was all Turkish. Then we had another gentleman, we were doing a live presentation, and we always let the audience come up and ask their own questions. And he said, can I ask a question? I said, absolutely, go ahead. But he asked his question in his Native American language, so we didn't even know what he asked. So we just waited to see what kind of response, and wasn't even sure he got a response until I saw his eyes kind of widen and his jaw drop. And I said, did you get your response? He said, not only did I get my response, but I got it in my Native American language.
Wow.
That's really cool. Now, I got a quick question, and this is something that I've been wanting to ask since we've been having this discussion. Have you ever had one of these spirit voices follow you home or continue talking with you after you left an investigation site?
Well, we've had stuff follow us home when we've done investigations, yes, but we've never had it happen from communication. Why do we believe that doesn't happen? Well, because we believe spirits have a non-locality, meaning they have the ability to communicate from anywhere. They don't have to be in my living room to sound like they're speaking to me in my living room or my studio. So therefore, and scientists have asked us, well, have you ever caught any residual energy after the communication? No, we haven't, because we don't believe they have to be here in order to communicate. So no, we've not had any concerns with communication to this point.
Well, what is the most chilling or unsettling response you've ever received from a spirit voice?
Well, I don't. Do you guys have the clips I sent?
I do, but we don't normally play clips on our shows.
Oh, okay. All right.
So
well, that kind of gives every answer you're asking. But I asked how they hear me speak, because I'm human. I'm creating vocal sound waves through my vocal cords, which travel through the atmosphere. And if spirits are energy, frequency, and vibration and don't have ears, how do they hear me speak? Well, the answer came back. They said, we call it death, energy of the mind. That's the thing. Clearly, not only supports that question, it is also the theory of science called the survival theory, which scientists in certain fields are trying to prove that consciousness can survive death. The survival theory supports that. It also supports the fact that we did a decade of EVP research prior to this. And a lot of times the answer would show up on the recorder before we even finished asking the question, which means they're not getting it from my vocals. My vocals have nothing to do with it. It is me thinking it.
Yeah, thinking.
Transferring that information through consciousness back to them that they can answer.
Yeah, exactly.
Mercedes, can you send those files to Stan? Stan can play them if we can get the files to him.
Okay. I will.
The longing to believe in life after death seems to be deeply woven into the human heart.
Absolutely.
It's across cultures, different religions, and even in secular philosophy. We all wrestle with that question.
Correct.
What happens when we die?
Right. You are absolutely correct. And, across every cultural, across every religion, there is the belief that life goes on. Well, that's got to come from somewhere. And I truly believe that is ingrained in our consciousness, because we know it. Consciousness creates everything in the universe. And it is the ontological primitive of life. And if that's true, and there are theories now in science supporting that, quantum physics, there's a gentleman named Federico Fagin who just released an unbelievable theory. He was a computer scientist for years and a physicist, which crosses basically spirituality with physics. And some of his theories are just jaw-dropping.
You said his name was Federico?
Federico Fagin, Faggin. Yep.
Let's check him out.
Yeah. And it falls very much so in line with consciousness and being the ontological primitive, that consciousness is not created in the brain. But I think science has known for years that they have a problem called the hard problem of consciousness, and they can't get past that. But some of these newer theories, including analytic idealism, Mr. Fagin's theory, and others now, are placing consciousness to be sort of at the forethought or the essence of life in the universe itself.
I think our need to know. I mean, there's two things that every human being experiences, and they share those experiences. That's birth and death, and
Right.
both are wrapped in mystery.
Correct.
And we don't know the fear or the shock. That's probably why babies come out kicking and screaming. The fear of the shock of being born into this world that they've never been a part of. It's much like when we die. Fear comes from the unknown, but curiosity comes from the longing within us to understand if life has meaning beyond the grave. Because nobody wants to just cease to exist.
Right.
And
Right.
if we can prove that something survives death, it gives us hope. What's wrong with giving people hope? I think it's a great thing.
Well, I agree. And one of our biggest challenges was there's so much evidence out there. Now, is it really being looked at? I mean, you've got EVP, you've got ITC, you've got near-death experiences, you've got out-of-body experiences. Those are starting to rack up where science will take a look. But the one thing that I noticed was not advancing was spirit communication, even though there's EVP, there's ITC, there's direct voice phenomena where people hear it with their own ears. Could we push the limits on that? And that was the purpose of Staticom and now Staticom 3.0.
Wow.
That's awesome.
I sent Stan a recent video I saw on your Facebook. I cannot find that email that I sent, but if you come back again, now that I know that we can do this, really, I just normally have not done that on my other shows, so we can play more. Hopefully, Stan will see this and be able to play what I have sent him.
And that way, when we have Tony come back, he can send us the audio files with the explanation, and then he can explain what we're listening to. That way, we can already have them ready to go. Tony, I don't know. I can turn the computer on. If it wasn't for my son, I wouldn't be sitting here today, able to talk to you.
No worries.
So so I know that you're going to be at that big Paracon. What's that one? Brent Thomas is going to be there. You're going to be there too, right?
Phenomenon, yeah.
The
We're
Phenomenon
in a week. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was just on with Brent the other day, and he was talking about that. And I've known about that for 3 years with him. So I know that's a big event. Is this your first time at this one?
Yes, it is. But we're going to give a 90-minute presentation, hopefully a demonstration as well, of what this system can do.
That is incredible, because that's I think that's just one of the big ones. I know George Norrie is supposed to be there this time.
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole bunch of people. I mean, Travis Taylor, who NASA scientist, and from Skinwalker Ranch, the entire Skinwalker Ranch will be there. Crew will be there. George Norrie. I mean, I don't even want to try to name them off because I know I'll forget very, very important people. But there's some big names in looking at phenomena that can't be explained. And so this is a great opportunity for us to say, hey, you know what? Can you speak to consciousness, and does consciousness survive death? We think so, and here's why.
Well, say for instance on Skinwalker Ranch, they don't have anything like this to talk to the spirits like that you're using, do they? They're not. This is not. Yeah. So
no, I mean, as far as we know, there are lots of other versions and many old versions of where we started. But we've made so many changes that it's funny to me when people say, oh yeah, here's what they're using. No, that's gone. But there are other versions out there, and somebody who wants to start where we started, there's multiple people out there telling people how to do it. But to my knowledge, this is the most advanced system to date.
Wow.
And we're working on the next one already. So,
that's the thing about the technology, and I think you mentioned that, Bishop Joshua. How fast it's going. Or we were somewhere. I was talking about that today, but like even something I did last night. I was able to take a picture of one of my spirit drawings, and I knew that I had seen something where I could make that, because for the documentary I wanted to do. How can I do something with that? And sure enough, they have an app on Google that you can literally all of a sudden it starts walking. And I'm like, that wasn't just like 6 months ago, that wasn't available. So I thought, I mean, this technology is just escalating. And I'm curious, I have heard several people talk about this, but do you think that possibly we are being, from what you're even getting, do you feel like you ever get like downloads to help you further what you're doing? So you will understand how to create something
We
to the
have
next
clips that'll
level.
literally walk us through it. They'll tell us how to do it. And I think I did send one of them. I know we can't play them, but I did send one where they were literally telling me the settings I needed to get their voice to come in clear. So yeah, I've never considered myself to have any abilities. And then people will say to me, well, they wouldn't be communicating with you if you didn't. The machine's like 40% of it, the other 60 is you as an individual. And now I'm starting to believe that based on more research. But when you can ask a question and have them verbally give you an answer, that's all I need, especially when it's correct. That setting has not changed since the day we received it, tuned it to that, and it's sat there ever since working. So
see, I love this. I love this information because it's kind of how I work. Like I hear, like, I feel like God or is talking to me. So I'll do that, or I'll ask the question. Oh, is this right? Yes. So I know that I'm being communicated with. That I know. So it's really neat to be able to hear this. Plus, like animals, they can hear your thoughts. So it's very similar to that. Once you cross out of the body, we become able to talk without verbalization.
well, a couple of things within what you said, and I'm not disagreeing with you at all. I do
Okay.
agree. But people always say to me, oh, how can a spirit speak? They don't have vocal cords. You don't need vocal cords to speak. You need energy, frequency, and vibration. The
Yes.
same way you make sound by plucking a guitar string. Your
Yes.
thumb is the energy. The string then vibrates. That vibration produces a tone. And you can say, okay, yeah, but that's not speech. And that's what people will say to me. Yeah, but that's not speech. I said, well, does your radio have vocal cords? And they'll go, no. I'm like, well, what are you hearing? Speech. Well, how do you think that's happening? Energy, frequency, and vibration.
Yeah.
If when you lose the human body, if consciousness is energy, frequency, and vibration, that is all they need to affect an electronic piece of equipment and get a vocal response by changing that energy level, that vibrational level, and making it make the sounds they need it to make. And that's exactly what we believe happens. But then people say to us, well, why technology? Why does it have to be through technology? Well, because technology, like you said, is one of the most advancing subject matter out there today. And then people say to me, well, what's the division between the living and the dead? That division by nature is the human body. We can only see visible light. We can only hear 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz. And there are spectrums on both the visual and the audio level above and below everything we can see and hear. Our sense of smell is limited. If you take a dog's got like 10 to 20 times the smell we have. So it's literally the human body that keeps us separated from everything else going on around us. And by design, I believe, because if you had access to all that information of spirits coming and going, in and out, talking, conversing, you wouldn't be able to focus. Your mind would become entropic soup and dissolve. It'd be the difference between using a computer with that graphical representation. Okay, that's a folder. If I open up the folder, I see other files. While if you were looking at what that computer is really doing, which is all 0 and 1 data, your mind would freak out. You wouldn't be able to process it. So life to us is that graphical understanding of the universe that we can manipulate, or not manipulate, but work our way through it without getting hit by a bus or, but not probably truly understanding what actually is there.
So much to this conversation.
I think it's fascinating. And, we talk about spirits existing outside of time and space and yet being present. My mind goes back to the book of Genesis when the scripture says they heard the voice of God walking in the garden. So, I mean, there was no physical body there,
Right.
but his voice was present.
Right.
And then I think about Elijah rather, when he was at the cave. There in the book of Kings, he stood by the mountain and there was a wind and an earthquake, but yet he heard a still small voice, and that's where God was. So I mean, it's amazing how that people will say, well, that can't be relevant or verified, and yet they haven't experienced, and yet they have faith in the scripture. And don't get me wrong, I do too. I'm a bishop and a minister, but also believe that things that have been recorded and the research that's been done is verifiable. It is valuable, and we need to not discredit that. That's been the problem in the religious community. We discredit everything. We don't want to believe anything, and really, if you get down to brass tacks and you talk with people, they don't know what they believe really, anyways. It's just kind of
exactly.
Well, we take it for granted.
And even when you ask them what your maybe philosophical stances on life, or they can't even answer it because they haven't dove deep enough to even figure out what theirs is or what they believe or not believe. But you're absolutely right. And science is the same way. I think it was Newton or Tesla, maybe it was Tesla, who said if science would take a look at the anomalous phenomenon, they'd learn more in a day than they've learned in a decade of the 3D materialistic science. And I heard you say something before the show that being able to mix spirituality with paranormal or even the science, I mean, those, like I said, the new theories that are out are beginning to do that, and that's where more answers are being found. So I think that's great.
Yeah, I think it's important. I mean, you can't discredit the work that people does. I mean, you can't just because you don't understand it doesn't mean it's not valuable and it's not something that we all need. We all have that inherent question: is there life after death?
Right.
In psychology, we're taught to teach people not to fear death, but to teach people that death is a part of life that we all have to face. And there's so many different viewpoints about life after death, and so many people are so divided on it. But knowing that there is something after death, it does give us a sense of hope. And that's what we all want. We all want to know that we don't just die. I mean, that to me, that thinking about us just dying and being dead and not continuing on. And I know there's people that believe that. But I believe that we do go on. I do believe that there is consciousness after death. I mean, even Jesus taught about, the rich man and Lazarus. That wasn't just a parable. That was Jesus peeling the layers back into the supernatural realm. And showing us that there was a conversation going on between Abraham and the rich man. I mean, it's not. I mean, if you have any sense of logic, or if you could have any reasoning power whatsoever, it's not very hard to believe. Because like we've talked about this whole hour, the proof's there. You have proof. And when I used to listen to Barbara and Brandon as they come on Coast to Coast, I mean, the things that you hear is it just blows your mind. It's fascinating.
Right. It is. And the evidence continues to stack up, and technology's, one advantage to pushing that forward. Also, science being able to break new boundaries on different theories and scientific evidence that they're acquiring. But there are some mysteries I don't think we'll ever know, only strictly because we're not supposed to.
Right.
We are here to learn and grow as individuals, and then take that back And if that gets disrupted, then, the whole purpose of life would fall apart. So I think that'll stay protected for a while, but it's great to be able to break those boundaries and see what we can get answered. And we've gotten some amazing responses for just asking, questions like, how do you hear me speak? Or, what transitioned you from, they've literally answered. We had a woman say, I had cancer, but she didn't say it depressed. She didn't say it. She knew what happened. She knew what took her out of this life and over to the next. And, it wasn't emotional. She's just like, yeah, I had cancer, but she's still there. She's answering the question and she's still around.
From a psychological point of view, and I love I study science. I love science. I'm a therapist and I'm always constantly reading. And we talked about death, the fear of the unknown, and humans fear what they can't control or predict, and death is the greatest unknown, and that triggers existential anxiety. And
Yep.
I think the reason why a lot of people, because we're programmed to unknowingly be part of what I call terror management theory. And that was developed a few years ago, but that theory suggests that cultural beliefs and religions and values that help us cope with the fear of mortality by promising meaning and continuity. When we think outside of that box or outside of that thought process, diving into the unknown and pulling the unseen out of the darkness and bringing it into our world, our existence, it kind of makes people afraid because, number one, we don't want to face our own mortality. And number two, the thought is there, oh my God, I really do. I really am going to exist outside of this physical existence. There is something that happens when I die, and I am going to be alive somewhere, somehow.
Right. Well, and there's so many things, people ask me, okay, you can communicate, you can have a full conversation. What good is that going to do? Oh my gosh. One of the most painful thing is grief from a loss of a child or a parent or a loved one.
Yeah.
What if you could actually have them say, hey, I'm still here, I'm still around, we will speak again. It may be a while, but we'll speak again. That can solve that. That can put that fear or that grief and lower it considerably. And then people say, okay, well, what else are you going to do with it? Well, Staticom won't give us anything from the future. And the way we know that is because over the past, I don't know how many years, we've asked for the Powerball numbers 1,000 times. They don't give them to us. But it will give us anything that's already happened. So when we were doing some research questions, I said to my wife, I said, let's help police departments, FBI with cold cases, because we can literally ask questions and they will give us answers.
Yeah. Yeah. That's important, because that's one thing I know is that spirits want that. They want you to find out what happened to them. Like if there's a mystery, if there's a death that's been covered up. I think that they really do want the validation of that. So I think that's wonderful. This is so amazing. I'm so glad you came here today.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Is there, why don't you tell us where people can find you, the website and all that? I'll be sharing all that too on the line.
The website is called entityvoices.com. There's some investigations up there. I don't know if I ever finished putting up because we've investigated hundreds of locations. But the Staticom stuff is all there. You can see clips. You can see shows that we've done. You can see presentations. You can see where we're going to be, where we're speaking next, what part of the country we're going to be in, or even out of the country. We got PhenomenaCon coming up September 3rd to the 6th. A month after that, we go to Halifax, Canada, to demonstrate it at the Paranormal Symposium up there. And then we've got local events. We're doing 2 events at the Orpheum Theater here in Phoenix. We will be at the Superstition Mountain Museum. But I also have Facebook under Tony Rathman, TikTok under, I think, Entity Voices. Instagram. But if you just go to Google and put in either Tony Rathman or Staticom, it'll pull up pages of stuff and information.
Yeah. There's so much.
And there's a lot of information on there. That's why it was so. I tried to condense everything I wanted to say in the introduction because there's just so much to say. But when you have the man himself here as a guest, you could just let him. I could sit here a whole hour, Tony, and listen to you talk and just not say nothing.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. It's a fascinating subject, and we're getting results that I have never gotten before, at least not to the level that we have now upgraded. Yeah. But it's a tough battle for the circumstances that I said, is that you're fighting cultural experience and the way they were raised. You're fighting religious values. You're fighting, some scientists who still believe that consciousness is part of the brain. You got people saying you shouldn't be doing that. You're talking to demons. I don't know. We don't know for certain about any of it. We don't know who's right or who's wrong or which ones are correct and which ones aren't. The whole point of the research is to try to find some of those answers.
I kind of agree with the quantum consciousness theory of Roger Penrose and Stuart Hameroff that consciousness does not depend on the brain.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, materialistic science faces the hard problem of consciousness, which says, rocks don't have consciousness, trees don't have consciousness, the ocean doesn't have consciousness, but the human brain does. Well, what's the human brain made up? Similar elements to rocks, trees, and the water. So how does one have it, but one not? So
right. And they do have it. The water, all that has energy. The rocks, we're all connected, all molecular, all energetic.
From a connection standpoint, yes. But whether a rock has consciousness or not, those are questions yet to be answered. Materialistic science today says no, it doesn't. But then how does the brain? It's the same molecules, same elements as every other object. How does one object have it, but others don't? That's the problem with materialistic science.
Wow.
I think that is truth.
Yes. Thank you so much. I know we've got to go and say goodnight, but thank you so much for being here. This has been
My
so pleasure. Enlightening and eye-opening.
I wish we had another hour with him.
I can come back anytime.
Please. That would be an honor.
Awesome. I would love that too.
All right. Well, thank you so much. And everybody, please check him out. Check out all the things he just said, where he's at. It's going to be amazing. And we hope that you join us Saturday for The Unseen Realm with Archbishop Ronald Bell Enright, which is on streaming live everywhere. And the whole panel will be there to answer questions. So that's 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Be sure to check that out too. And we look forward to seeing everybody next week. Thank you. Thank you, Tony.
Thank you, Tony. We appreciate you.
All right. Have a good night.
You too.